Greetings, friends, and welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. This is our 30th broadcast, our first of 2009, of course. Wish you a very, very happy new year. I'm Paul, and Ben has the night off. Before we start, there's been, I guess, a little subplot going on behind our show, which we've only been on the air for about 7 months, but I just thought that I really ought to mention it. And to thank you for the many unexpected personal letters and emails that Ben and I receive about our father-son relationship. Okay. I suppose it's unusual these days for a 55-year-old father and a 16-year-old son not only to have common interests, bizarre as those might be in our case, but to have each other as partners and confidants. We have our problems now and then, of course, and there are times when I have to stomp on him as his father, but Ben and I are very, very, very blessed in our relationship. Part of it could be that I remember what it's like to be 16, and a lot of fathers don't. Of course, my wife Jackie says it's because I never grew up. But anyway, Ben is a pretty mature guy, so maybe we meet somewhere in the middle. Ben and his older brother, Jonathan, who's another terrific guy, who works for me full-time, were brought up very simply. They were brought up to respect themselves, to respect others, to honor God, each other, and our family. Negative things like name-calling and hurtful talk have never been allowed in our house, and I've been lucky enough to be able to work at home throughout the boys' lives, and the four of us have always been together. We've shared everything, and most of all, we've always laughed together, though hopefully not at each other. To this day, even though Jonathan is 25 and Ben is 16, they and Jackie and I all pray together before we go to bed. We make it a point to say that we love each other. We trust each other, and whenever one of us wants to talk, we put aside whatever we're doing, no matter how important, and nothing else is more important at that moment than talking to each other and listening. That's it. I mean, as I say, we have our issues like any other family, but it's not rocket science either. If you love and laugh together, everything else can be fixed. And most of all, no parasite is going to be able to touch you. Now, I remember one note in particular because it came in around Father's Day. Now, I usually don't say these things on the air because it's not related to the paranormal. This is around the time of like our third show or something last June. And the question was, and to me, of course, what is the best thing you think a father can do for his children? And I found that a very easy answer. The best thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. After that, everything else falls into place. So thank you for your good thoughts and good wishes. And if we can, I guess be any kind of example or whatever, then Ben and I are both very glad that we can. And again, thank you. Well, we're almost ready to welcome our guest, who was a familiar face, or at least voice, to many of you. But let's do our paranormal question of the week first. Rebecca from St. Charles, Illinois, was the first to correctly answer last week's contest question. What was the name of the Tennessee farmer who supposedly disappeared in front of a group of witnesses in 1880? The answer was David Lang, a farmer in Gallatin, Tennessee. Now, this story is an unshakable part of American paranormal folklore. The problem is that it almost certainly never happened. Apparently, it's a composite of several earlier stories put together and shipped off by a bored reporter who was visiting that area and had nothing else to write. And when I was a newspaper editor, he wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes with me, I'll tell you that. Anyway, I can assure you that there are many well-attested cases of disappearances similar to this, but this one, alas, apparently was a hoax. Anyway, Rebecca won a copy of my 2002 book, Footsteps in the Attic. Now, our question for this week has to do with something that, as far as I know, actually does occur. And it's a little bit difficult, so listen up. In parapsychology, what does DMILS stand for? DMILS. All right. If you think you can answer that one, drop us a quick message or call me at 888-235-7374. If nobody gets it before the end of the show, drop a line to Ben at BehindTheParanormal.com. Be the first to get that one right and win an autographed copy of my 1998 book, Faces at the Window. Sherri Lee Devereau, host of Opening Your Intuitive Eyes. Every Tuesday here on Achieve Radio is an intuitive guide, cold case, and arson psychic for law enforcement, a teacher, a massage therapist, and I think she would have told me this in the past because we're good friends, how to pronounce this, Qigong or Qi Kung, I believe, healer. She'll correct me, I'm sure. Trained at the Boding, here we go again, Qi Kung Hospital in China. She was a volunteer with the Phoenix Fire Department's crisis response team and an emergency medical technician, or EMT, earning her the title the Psychic EMT. She is author of a one-of-a-kind book, Shadows on My Shift, Real-Life Stories of a Psychic EMT. She lives in Horton, Wisconsin, and now I spent the better part of 30 years putting down psychics and mediums, and Sherri is very special to me personally because she showed me that that isn't always the right thing for me to be doing. She's not only the first psychic I ever formally worked with, but one who encouraged me and Ben to come out of the closet as psychics ourselves. That doesn't mean we agree on everything because sometimes the fur flies, but she's a very, very good friend and I owe her a lot. Sherri's website, www.intuitiveeyes.com. Sherri, thank you for holding and welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Oh, just ducky, and Happy New Year to you, dear.
Happy New Year. It's pronounced Qigong.
Qigong, okay.
You don't stomp on Ben. Who are you trying to kid?
No, I'm only trying to balance the argument there. No, you know both Ben and Ben and I personally, and I just thought
I have met not only you and Ben, but I know Jackie and I know Jonathan, and I've been to your house in Rhode Island. So
that's right, Sherri's been, and we were honored to have you. We were this I think goes back to, was it 05 or 06? I don't even remember.
05.
Yeah, 05. Okay, you're up here to sign your book contract, and you also met one of our good friends and one of our marketing people, Dave Balfour, who was a person who taught you all about Rhode Island history.
Dave has his picture on my website where I'm kind of invisible after he took me through all those cemeteries.
That's right. Yeah, well, I use that picture quite frequently, and then we'll get into that in a minute, but I wanted to sort of start with the whole psychic issue today, and I'll ask folks as we talk with Sherri today, don't hesitate to quick message us or call us to join our discussion at 888-235-7374, toll-free in the U.S. and Canada. Now, Sherri, the whole idea of being a psychic medium riding with a rescue team implies to me all kinds of, complicated decisions. And you talk about that sometimes in your book, like, how to deliver messages to accident victims' families who are freaked out. I mean, can you share with us a couple of stories from your Phoenix days that show us how you handle that kind of thing?
There's so many, and the book tells quite a few of them. One of the ones that I think that you liked a lot was about Armando and his son Mondo. And
yeah, very much so, yeah.
He still has a special place in my heart. He still calls once a year, and he's the only person I've ever kept in contact with over the years. But the story is Armando, the father, was a truck driver, and he was gone during the time that his son Mondo had a brain aneurysm while playing catch in their front yard. And little Mondo passed away before his father could get back to be there. And he was very, very upset. He had arrived home later that day. And we were called out to help the family. And I was able to give messages from Mondo, who had passed away, to his father and to his family, and I kind of saw a glimmer of hope. But, as I've stated, it's hard sometimes because you never get to see what happens after you leave the scene and how anything you've done has helped somebody kind of heal and move on. And a few months later, I ran into Armando in the grocery store. And he was talking to me and telling me how much the messages had meant to him and that he knew that, his son was okay. And asked me, just curiously, do you have any messages for me? And I was very easily able to tap in that quick moment. And I don't like chocolate. I'm not a big chocolate fan. And the first thing that I had seen was this big, huge, like double chocolate, triple layered cake with oozing chocolate frosting and chocolate sprinkles and chocolate. And I was
Sounds
like,
good to me.
And I saw a big candle on top of it. Now, I don't interpret the pictures to what it means to me. I've learned over the years just to let the people know what I'm seeing. And Armando laughed and cried and danced around, and I'm sure it was quite a shock to people shopping in the store. But he said it was little Mondo's birthday that day, or it would have been his birthday. And
wow.
He was just really, really happy that his one wish was to somehow make contact with his son, and I was dragged to the opposite end of Phoenix to happen to go to that grocery store and ran into him. And so little Mondo was working pretty hard that day to get us all together.
That's amazing. Okay,
that
folks.
Was one of them.
Yeah, excellent. Well, folks, you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. We're talking to author, teacher, speaker, and psychic medium Sherri Lee Devereau. And I just put in a little plug here for the book. It's Shadows on My Shift, the real-life stories of a psychic EMT. And you can get it from Sherri's website, intuitiveeyes.com, newriverpress.com, amazon.com. And if they get it from you, Sherri, would you sign it? You're going to get a personalized copy?
Okay,
excellent. Excellent. Okay. Now, as you were going through your years as an EMT here in Phoenix, how much did your fire department colleagues know about your psychic abilities, if anything?
Well, if you just worked with somebody once or twice or three times, it was kind of easy to let things kind of be overlooked or slide by. But after you get to work with people over the years, they kind of get to know that you're different. And Carol was always one of my favorite partners. She used to just kind of laugh as she would say, "You just talking to the air again?"
Yeah.
I'd just kind of be arguing out behind the fire truck going, my hands would be going, my head would be going. And then I would come back over by her and try to pretend to be normal. And she knew and she would just laugh.
Yeah. Well, I found out, too, in the early on in my own career, quote unquote, in the paranormal, and this is back in '74, the Bridgeport poltergeist case in Connecticut, that when there were all sorts of firefighters involved, and there weren't the rescue squads like there are today. I mean, there were separate ambulances there, but there were a lot of professional, cops and firefighters involved in this case. And I found out very quickly that when it comes to the paranormal in general, and sometimes psychic and mediumistic stuff in particular, sometimes the police and firefighters are among the ones who see these things and are more accepting, in my experience, than people might think. So I don't know if
most of the guys try to be really macho about it. If you can get them one-on-one, you can usually, share a story back and forth. But I think one of my toughest crowds were the sheriff's department when I was a cold case psychic for Sheriff Joe.
Oh, yeah, tell us about that.
The sheriff's officers that I had met, the few that I worked with, they didn't believe in psychics. They were only doing this because, Sheriff Joe said they had to, and they were just going to let me know that they didn't believe in, psychics at all. And after I talked with them and tried to explain how I worked, I started to learn some of their words, like they just had a cop instinct or a gut feeling or their spidey senses went off. And I said, well, tomato, it's the same thing. Whether you call it, your cop sense or, whatever, it's the same thing. You get the same images that assist you in what you're doing. You just know that somebody did it, or you just know where to find that piece of evidence, or you just know things. And once we got past that, we were okay.
That's it. And the sheriff's talking about Sheriff Joe Arpaio, I believe, right, in Maricopa County, Arizona, the flamboyant fellow who's frequently on the national news for one reason or another. Doesn't take any grief from anybody, and loves the publicity, too, and does a good job, as I understand it.
He does.
So, Yeah. Are there any other cases like stand out? That's got to be my favorite. Maybe it's because of the chocolate cake, but any other cases that kind of stand out? I remember there was a fellow who had fallen off a roof and had committed suicide and regretted it. From your information, if I did...
that was a guy who we got the call. It was originally a fall injury, and part of the crisis team, we didn't usually get called out to fall injuries. But when we got there, we realized it wasn't the fall; it was the gunshot to the guy up on the roof that then he fell. And he was really, really upset that he had died. He wasn't really planning on doing it, but he just, in a moment of weakness, and wanted to tell people that he was sorry and give messages. And I was able to give a few messages that day. One of my favorite stories, I'll tell you this one real quick, was an elderly couple that we went to. They had both been high school sweethearts. They had separated during World War II and never reconnected with each other, met again at their 50th high school class reunion, and found out that, they had both been widowed and they still had that interest. A few years had gone by, and his adult children were giving them a hard time because they didn't like her, because he was that first love.
Oh, yeah.
And they were going to get a will put up, but he had to do it in cash because otherwise his son would know, where that money would go from the checking account. So she went to go play bingo that morning, and he was supposed to go see the lawyer. And when she came home, she had found that he had passed away there in the home, and she was very upset, and we got called out. And it was one of those, she didn't know if he had went to the lawyer, if he had done the will, where he would have put the will, what lawyer he would have went to, because everything was cash and kind of secret because of his children. And this is one of those cases that, you just kind of do and nobody has a clue that you're doing what you're doing. And so I just kind of stepped into the room closer to where the guy was currently at and just said, now would be a great time to kind of let me know where this will would be. And I immediately saw a picture of a green book on one of the shelves in a library. And so I asked the lady, do you have a library, a bookshelf? She's like, oh, in the office. And this is where you sometimes have to make up stories about your loved ones and your friends. Mm-hmm. And so I had told her, I said, well, my husband always put important information in solid colored books. Maybe if we looked in like red books or blue books or green books. And my partner that was with me started going through the different shelves. And, there's that part of me that says, no, cold. You want to go this way, but, you can't do that. You don't want to really upset the people. And so we just had to kind of play along and take a while to make it seem like we were really searching. And finally, the lady had pulled the green book out, and I just kind of held my breath and waited. And as she opened it, there was the will that he had just finished that morning that allowed her to stay in the house and not be kicked out and become homeless.
That's amazing.
That was one of those things nobody knows you do, and you just kind of do.
Wow, that's great. There's certainly a service to that family. It's funny, sitting, when we first met through a mutual associate, and I'm, paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, if you will, and you're the psychic, and seldom does the twain meet, so to speak. Seldom do the twain meet. The
I think
paranormal
we
investigator.
Each other, took a couple of sniffs and hissed at each other, if I remember. First
we
off,
did kind of circled around, and what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And we ended up doing some programs together out west, and I think the sort of the market has changed now, but I'd be happy anytime to do programs with you again. But it was very interesting that I was kind of privileged to take you on your first ghost case. I guess, in Rhode Island when you were visiting here, and you and Ben and I went out to a place here in, I guess, North Smithfield, and your experience was I was fascinated because it didn't seem to me that your experience was really all that different in some ways, but it was a learning experience for both of us. Can you recall that case at all?
I can, and I remembered it was a big yard, and the house was very, very old. And here in the Midwest, and definitely all the years I spent in Phoenix, I wasn't used to houses being 200-300 years old, and it's a new house in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, some of the people are too.
And I remember the people were having a lot of family problems as well within that house. And there were a few areas that we both agreed on that were a little off in the energy reading, but...
Yeah. Well, you helped, Ben and I both learned that, and as we sort of became better known, we were called upon to help people with advice and stuff on their paranormal problems all over the world. And through you partially, you helped us learn that you have got to use your psychic abilities as much as you can in order to really completely help anybody in these situations. And we'll always be grateful to you for that. But I remember you being so nervous around ghosts, quote unquote, and I found that kind of cute in a way. But I think
the ones that come and seek me to give a loving message to their family are totally different than the ones that you guys go out and actually seek.
That's interesting.
There's a difference.
Yeah, how can you talk about?
Well, one of the things I was going to say is that we have, six senses. Yeah. Why would you go and investigate and put a blindfold on if you really needed to use your eyes?
Right.
Why in a cake eating contest would you not bring your taste buds?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's true. Well, certainly the person in that house had a very good impression of you, and I found that it was with the two of us working that way, it was a very complete approach to that. And now I've come out of the closet. I'm probably, I don't know how good I am at it, but I don't do it very often. But I do readings for people and this sort of thing, as you know. And Ben kind of helps. Although I found it interesting that the first time we did a psychic show, and we haven't done one in quite a while, simply because we've had so many guests that I want to put forward to people. Ben was sitting next to me, and we kind of got in each other's way psychically. He was scribbling furiously, and we were getting the same impressions, but it was kind of difficult to keep organized. So on the second show that I did, I just did it myself. And I don't know, that seems to be how it worked. But I'm sure you could testify that you learn as you go, and you learn what works and what doesn't for you and that sort of thing. So, but again, grateful to you for kind of, launching the ship, so to speak, as far as we were concerned.
I think I dragged you out of the closet and stomped on you. Yeah, no.
yeah, there's that word again. It's true. Okay, again, let's go a little deeper as we go. We're coming up on our break here, but I wanted to go a little deeper into some of the issues about being psychic and medium and about some of the things that we're doing. But just before our break here, so you've moved back to Wisconsin, where you're from, and are you going to be working with the fire departments there at all?
No, because snow goes sideways here, and it's really cold, and I just can't handle the cold yet. I'm in my house shivering when it gets below zero, Paul.
Yeah, well, it does here too. We don't think anything of it. People wear windbreakers, but that's anyway.
Just letting my dog Mercedes know today. In Phoenix, the grapefruit are ripe right now.
Oh my gosh, I know. I remember you had in your yard you had citrus trees. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
And now in my yard I've got 3 feet of snow. Big difference.
Only 3 feet? Oh, okay, all right. Well,
we had a melty thing there last week for a little while.
Oh, okay, excellent. Well, anyway, I'm going to give you a question here. You can think about it over the break. And these are questions I ask myself, too. But, how do you know the information you receive is coming from a legitimate source? In other words, that it's not trying to mislead or hurt you or other people. So just to think about that over our break, and we'll ask Sherri to hold on. And, folks, you're listening to Behind the Paranormal. Paul and Ben Eno, our guest is Sherri Devereau. And we'll see you after the break. Stay with us. folks, this is Paul Eno, co-host of Behind the Paranormal here on Achieve Radio. We're very pleased to have as our sponsor New River Press and Barking Cat Books, publishers of some of the most unusual New Age titles on the market today. Along with 4 books by moi, New River Press offers the blockbuster on animal communication, Hear All Creatures, The Journey of an Animal Communicator by Karen Anderson, Shadows on My Shift, real-life stories of a psychic EMT by psychic medium Sherri Lee Devereau, Achieve Radio talk show host of Opening Your Intuitive Eyes, and in a true story that will break your heart with its beauty, especially if you've ever lost a child, there's 41 Signs of Hope by Dave Kane, about the ongoing love and communication between a father and a mother and their son, youngest victim of the 2003 nightclub fire in Rhode Island. Finally, from Barking Cat Books, don't miss the action-adventure that spans 1,000 years, Heaven's Wave, a novel of the doomsday prophecy of 2012 by Dierline. Visit newriverpress.com, barkingcatbooks.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore.
When you open your mind, you can hear with your soul, all your heart can behold.
Spirit Connections is a weekly journey investigating and sharing spiritual topics. We'll help you become aware of how the spiritual worlds connect with us all daily and how to safely access that guidance. Each week, a variety of guests will share how they connect to spirit and enlighten us with their insights. Experts in all areas of spirituality will share their wisdom, as well as what's new in the media pertaining to spiritual consciousness. Now is the time to find your inner spiritual strength. Let us offer logical answers to your questions into the unknown. Knowledge is power, and the way to find your own spirit connection.
To hide, still it calls from the deep.
New River Press is proud to sponsor tonight's segment of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Benjamin Eno. New River Press offers the best in unusual New Age books. Stand by the side of tonight's host, Paul Eno, as he battles poltergeists and helps suffering souls and families in the critically acclaimed books Faces at the Window and Footsteps in the Attic. Plunge deeper into the paranormal with Paul and learn about his influence on human history, its action in our daily lives, and its ultimate meaning for us in the best-selling Turning Home, God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny. Available now from New River Press, publishers of unusual books. Visit newriverpress.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore. And set for release late this year in one of the most unusual books on the subject ever written, Paul gives us Dancing Past the Graveyard, What Ghosts Have to Say About God.
Listening to AchieveRadio.com, the positive side of broadcasting.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Paul, and we're here with our guest, Sherri Lee Devereau, speaker, author, teacher, and the psychic EMT. Join our discussion. Send us a quick message or call us at 888-235-7374 as we go. That's toll-free in the U.S. and Canada. Now, Sherri, we gave you a little question before the break, and it's a question that we always ask on this show because we do what the title implies, and that's try to get behind the paranormal. And if there's anything I believe I've learned in 40 years of paranormal research is that nothing in this realm is what it appears to be, at least very seldom.
Isn't that so true?
Yeah. So how do you know the information you receive is coming from where it says it's coming from?
Well, I rely on a few different things, and one of the things that I've learned to rely on is a feeling that I get, and that's kind of hard to describe because each person has, a feeling that kind of rings true for them. One of the other ways I knew that these messages were real and, were really trying to get through to me is a lot of times on scene with the fire department, I would, just kind of like say, go away, I don't hear you, la, 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 la.
Yeah,
and
or
hope
follow.
that, hope that they would go away. And, they didn't. And I realized that, I had to take some of these a little bit more seriously. I also ask for a certain sign or a certain smell or a certain feel. And that way I know that it's real, that it's kind of gotten through my own censorship to get to that point to give me a message. And, I have to say the vast majority of time the messages are so right on and the information just isn't known by people, and you can come up with that one specific thing that was just known between the person that passed away and the person that you're talking to. And so that's, one of the other signs that I get.
Okay. All right. You're also a medium. I'm not. Although you have at times said that I shouldn't be so quick in that decision, but be that as it may. The same question for a medium would go for what is generally known as spirits. And in your book, you talk about dealing with spirits as a medium. Now, how do you know they're who they say they are? Or do you use the same criteria?
I learned as a small child that if they make you afraid, then it's just not good. And I know that by going into haunted places, a lot of those spirits don't feel good to me.
I hear you. Yeah.
So I've just trained myself. I'm not listening. There's other people that deal with this. Mine is more of a, I guess I again kind of, I prefer to kind of have the spirits kind of come to me instead of me going to look for them.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. I know you've told them to keep out of your bathroom.
Yeah, and they can't ride in the car while I'm driving.
Well, that's a very practical kind of a consideration. Yeah, especially the way I drive. Anyway, so you do at times feel uncomfortable in a spirit situation, if you will. And do you just cut it off, the communication at that point, or leave?
You know what? Sometimes it's really hard because once they kind of track in on your energy and once they kind of make contact, they're not limited by where they can go a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they can follow you anywhere and get you at any time. And so I've learned how to use protection for myself, the white light, and, I use a little ball that's a specific color for me. And, I just try to keep the energy cleared out all the time. And that's mostly by conscious thought and thinking positive thoughts.
Now, I know that you teach. You teach meditation and you lead classes. Do people ever come to you and say that negative things spiritually are happening to them and ask you for help?
They do.
You have to defend others.
Well, I've had people come to me and, tell me things like, I have this negative energy around me and it's always following me. And then I say, well, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life, a little bit about you. And everything they say is very negative. And I just tell them, you know what, I can't take your money, and this is all that I can do to help you is to tell you every time you think a negative thought, you need to think 2 positive thoughts. If in 30 days things don't turn around, then come back and see me again. But almost always things turn around for them and things start to be positive. So I'm a big person of your thoughts create. What you think, and I'm not going to poo-poo away, the whole negative energy, because if anything you've taught me, that it is out there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think your approach is it's nice and simple, and it's nice and solid. I mean, that's essentially, in many ways what I do, although we'll go deeper, but I think from your perspective, it's great. Now, you and you, as of all people, you've sat through umpteen of my programs over the years. Our regular listeners and you, of course, know about my multiple worlds idea here, about, physics and multiverse and and all that, and how I think it works. Now, I've never known you to entirely agree with that in your own opinion and experience. Now, do you agree with the traditional spirit world approach, like we're here and they're there, only without their bodies, or do you think maybe there's some legitimacy to the way I look at it too, or both?
Paul, and I've always thought that, one of the things that separate you and I is you actually take time to think about these things. I don't want to think about them. I don't want to know, are they here with me all the time? Is it, that just scares the bejeebers out of me.
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm a psychic that's afraid of the dark, Paul. I mean,
well put.
And people like you like to take people like me into dark places, and I need counseling for a long time after that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it brings up a lot of thought, because I'm able to connect to anyone, past, present, and I don't know about the future because there's no way of, confirming or fact-checking, anything future that I get now. But then again, we have that thing called deja vu that happens. So in a way, sometimes you get me, I have to stop and think, do I really disagree with him just for the sake of argument? And no, I kind of lean more towards what you think, but I just don't think about it as much as you do.
Well, I hear you. Well, no, I've had people, even in audiences, live audiences, stand up and say, and criticize me for trying to explain everything. And I said, and my standard answer to that is explaining these things is not the problem. The problem is dealing with the explanations. Because they raise umpteen more questions than the actual phenomena do. Anyway, but we'll continue the duel of the idealists as we go, and hopefully we'll be doing more programs together. Now I'm going to submit to you a statement that someone way back, I guess it must have been some weeks ago, we were doing a show that had a psychic theme. And this is one of our listeners from California who always sends in very thoughtful questions and comments. And I'd like to just get your reaction to this, Sherri. This is a quote. So many psychics seem to be in worse shape than the rest of us. Many of them seem to stumble into one disaster after another, physical, emotional, and financial. If they are getting help from beyond, it doesn't seem to show, unquote. And that hit me between the eyes. How do you react to that?
Well, unfortunately, I end up with a lot of people who finally come to me and say, I've gone to this psychic and this clairvoyant and this reader and done this, and I boil it right down for them. I'm not going to tell you anything that you can't control. Everything is due to your thoughts, the way that you're thinking. If you don't like it, then change it. But I believe that our thoughts create. You just kind of need to follow through on what you want to create. I'm not into the whole scare tactic thing, or any of those gotta light a candle, turn around 3 times. Just think it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Now, on the issue of creating reality, we've discussed this, although not as much as I would have liked to, because of our, whenever we're working together, the schedule's pretty crazy. But I've always wondered what your thoughts are on this. Creating reality is a common theme among many of the things you teach and write, and it is with me too, but with me, I emphasize more creating reality together rather than as individuals, because I don't really believe in the individual. How do you react to that? I mean, you think it's more effective to try and work on your own, or to sort of try and create, influence your environment, manipulate your environment, create your reality just by yourself?
It's kind of one of those symbiotic relationships. I mean, if you're happy, your environment is happy. If your environment is happy, you're happy. And if one of those things aren't happy, then what are you as an individual going to do about it? And it could be to, galvanize a whole lot of people to work together to change it. So in a way, once again, unbelievable. I disagree in the fact that I believe in the individual, but yet the individual is part of a whole. It's not as individual as we like to think we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not the only feather on the bird.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Well put. Okay, let's shift gears here a little bit. I wanted to, before we run out of time here, I wanted to ask you about and I'll try this again, the Qigong.
Qigong, very good, Paul.
Oh, okay, got it right. The discipline, I mean, it's a form of meditation, it's a form of healing. Could you tell us about that and your experiences in China, learning about it?
I was one of 20 people invited to visit the Olympic Training Center in Beijing to learn a form of sports massage called Tuina. And for 6 weeks, the 5th week that we were there, Master Wang Zhuemin came to teach us Qigong, which is what he was going to teach us that afternoon, was to maintain our own energy. Because as a massage therapist or a body worker, you touch people and energy is exchanged. And if the person you're touching is more needy, you being, in service or a giver, you're going to give and you're going to get drained, which means you're more prone to injuries and illness and other dis-ease of the body. So he was going to teach us the Qigong, how to create more energy for us to use. And there was something that they had seen in me during our meditation, which caused quite an uproar, and I was a little nervous to find out I was the cause of the uproar, because I just had all these bad dreams of, like, being arrested in some foreign country, and,
Yeah. You're such a gentle soul, I can't imagine you causing an uproar.
Oh, being kicked out of parochial schools, hey.
Well, I got kicked out of the seminary, so hey, practically twins.
Yeah, and we do get along on a lot of subjects. But they had through bad translation. I did not speak Chinese, and they spoke very little English, if at all. Through translators over a day or so, they had asked if I would stay and train with Master Wang. And that 6th and final week, they were going to go see those terracotta statues they were digging up. And I said, well, heck, I'd rather stay and learn some ancient Chinese secret than see some terracotta statues. So I agreed to stay. But when my papers all came back for traveling, I found out that I was staying 3 more months to train with Master Wang. And I was the 4th person outside of China to be certified as a Qigong Master Healer. So I've worked with a few presidents, and I've worked with pro sports teams and a lot of VIPs and actors. And the Qigong itself, you direct the energy. It's much stronger than the form that a lot of people know, which is Japanese, called Reiki. Qigong that I was taught is not taught here. I just happen to be extremely lucky, the right place at the right moment. And I stayed and I learned, and the Qi energy is able to heal an injury in about half the time. So doing that, I'm not usually sick. I'm not usually injured. And, everything that happens to me, I can use that Qi and build it. And, back to that statement before where a lot of psychics have their lives all, upside down and they're trying to give people advice. My life has actually been really good. There's not anything I would change. I love my life, except I'm in the tundra right now. But, next winter, if I decide, I can travel.
Yeah.
But, this is where I want to be right now, and this is what I'm doing. And, the Qi energy that I've learned in China, I can control my body temperature. So believe it or not, in the wintertime, I make my body temperature a little bit lower. And therefore, it's not as cold to me, as it is if my body temperature were higher. So it works.
Well, I somehow picture you huddled in front of the wood stove in a blanket or something in your current life.
I would do the wood stove, Paul, but being with the fire department, I've seen too many wood stove fires happen and candle fires, and I just don't do fires, wood stoves, or candles. So.
Oh, boy. You never know that around here. We're choking on wood smoke all winter. And that leads to my question here. What has your life and work been like recently since you moved from the tropics to the tundra back to Wisconsin? You're from Wisconsin originally, right?
I'm from here originally, and I live in a very small town called Hortonville, which was founded by Alonzo Horton, who got smart and then went on to found San Diego. We're just south of Green Bay. A lot of people know the Green Bay Packers. And when I last lived here, probably 15 or more years ago, people weren't ready for what I had to talk about. They just weren't ready. And, it's taken them 15 years, and now people are ready, and they're listening, and I'm holding classes and, doing seminars, and my other half, Eric, and I have a company that we do leather crafting, and, we've called it Psy-Arc because for his it's arcane leather work, and I'm psychic, so we kind of invented, put the leather work and the psychic, and it's Psyarc.com, and we do a lot of leather crafting, and I still do my readings and the radio show, and
excellent.
Still
okay, certainly, yeah. Point out opening your intuitive eyes right here on Achieve Radio on Tuesday. What time is it Tuesday?
It's on at 9 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, very good. And aside from the website, so how can people get in touch with you? Like if they want
the best bet is to go to intuitiveeyes.com and send me an email through that site, and I'd be more than happy to talk with them. I'm not going to go investigate any creepy houses. I'll gladly
turn that over to me. All right. And again, folks, the book is the author, Sherri Devereau, Shadows on My Shift, the real-life stories of a psychic EMT. Terrific book. Make sure you pick it up. And, Sherri, we got to move on here, but I wanted to thank you so much for being with us. It's been a real pleasure, and it's always great to talk to you. And, we'll be listening to your show, and we'll have you back soon.
Oh, and I'll have you and Ben on real soon, so look forward to that.
We'll be talking.
Thank you, Paul.
Stay warm. Okay, bye-bye. All right, folks, I'm going to try and get in one email here that was pretty interesting that we received over the last few weeks here. It came in on December 26th, and Ben and I found it kind of interesting. As you know, we try to deal with the emails toward the end of the show because we receive several hundred a day, and we just can't deal with them one-on-one, unfortunately. I wish we could. This is from Rose Marie in Waynesboro, Georgia. And Rose Marie writes, my former home in Seymour, Connecticut, was featured on the Discovery Channel entitled Hell House. We had lived in the home for 10 years and never experienced anything paranormal. However, the new owners, and it gives their name, had the Warrens there on numerous occasions. That's Ed and Lorraine Warren, long time, probably the first popular ghost hunters, certainly of the 1950s and 60s, and the first people, among the first people I worked with when I started out in the 1970s. Anyway, they had the Warrens there on numerous occasions, and the home had to be exorcised twice. The people no longer live there, and the last I heard, the home was in foreclosure. I would really like to know if there's any truth to their claim that the home had a, quote, demonic entity. I have my own personal feelings on who may be haunting the house, if there is such a presence in there. And it says where the home was located, and it gives her phone number. And I probably will be calling Rosemarie here at some point soon, but I did want to sort of get this case out there and let you know that these sorts of things, these sorts of questions do arise. Demonic entity. Well, Rosemarie, I'll tell you. When I was working with the Warrens, and my point was that there are lots of non-human entities out there, and theologically, and I was a seminary student at the time, they are generally thought of as demons or demonic entities, literally servants of Satan in whatever way you want to understand that. And we had rather a narrow approach to that. Now, as the years went by, I kind of went my own way in the late 70s and developed some more of my own theories and kind of started working with other people in my own ways. The Warrens always kind of stuck to that theological approach or popular theological approach to what these entities were. And surely these entities would at times react to say, the cross or the Bible. And sometimes they wouldn't. From my first experience with the entities, which the first knockdown, drag-out case being the Bridgeport case of 74, in which I worked with the Warrens on the really nasty poltergeist outbreak. We've discussed that numerous times in this show. I began to sort of get impressions that these are not, maybe this is the psychic part coming in, these were not really entities that would have conformed to the theology I had learned. They didn't seem necessarily evil in the human sense of the word. They just seemed sterile, lifeless, neutral to the point of being unhuman. The word alien comes to mind, and I think it's quite apt. And that was the beginning of my point of view, that we have non-human, non-demonic in the theological sense entities that are just alien, who feed upon our energy, and for whom we are nothing but cows and, cattle and chickens or whatever you want to call it. We are being farmed as a species. I don't go as far as some people do in this, but I think that we are being farmed for food in many ways by these entities. And I think certainly they are the origins of the folklore that have to do with vampires, demons, evil spirits, whatever you want to say. So sure, I find no reason at all, Rosemary, to say that this house was not the victim of a demonic entity and the family in it. I did not see that particular Discovery Channel presentation. I think that very often people will jump to conclusions when it comes to these things. Many hoops have to be jumped through in order to find out if you're involved in anything paranormal. But short of all that, these things do happen. Whether it happened in this particular house in Seymour, Connecticut, I don't know. But these things do happen all too frequently. The getting as far as the poltergeist stage of this is somewhat unusual because a lot of feeding has to take place, and very often people will take steps, hopefully even by moving, to prevent that from happening before it gets to that stage. But yes, it's very possible that the Warrens were right here and that this has happened. Ed passed away a year ago, August, I believe. I have many very, very happy memories of the Warrens. Personally, they were like parents to me. For a number of years in the 1970s, and I'll never forget that. As far as their own methods and theories are concerned, well, I really went my own way on that. And but again, their experience certainly deserves respect. Certainly for Lorraine is continuing, I understand, to lecture and to travel, and God bless her. And she's certainly one of the most experienced people around, if not the most experienced. I mean, more than 50 years of experience in that field. So we're coming down to the end of our show here, folks. Thank you again for writing in. Ben and I have been taking a little holiday break this week. I've been writing my next book, and we'll have more information on our Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island cases very soon. Remind you that our telephone support group for parasite victims is now ongoing. And if you'd like to be considered for the group, I'll have to sort of vet your case. But please email me at paul@behindtheparanormal.com or call my personal consultation line toll-free at 866-894-3141. So, many thanks to our producer, Bill Schreiner. And we'll see you next Sunday, January 11th, when we'll have a really unusual and fun show for you. And we're going to have Tim O'Brien from Ripley's, believe it or not. Now, I don't know how paranormal that's going to be, but Tim is a real connoisseur of the weird and unexpected. And part of the glory, I guess, of the paranormal is that it's unexpected. I mean, things will come up that you have never heard of or never seen before, never even thought of before. And Ripley's, believe it or not, is one of the places where those things are documented. And I found that their publications are very careful in their research. They don't just put things in there. They take great care first. So Tim O'Brien of Ripley's next week. And, of course, that's Sunday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, right here on Achieve Radio. Don't miss that one. In the meantime, I leave you with an old Chinese proverb. He who could foresee affairs 3 days in advance would be rich for thousands of years. We'll see you next week. Hi, folks. This is Paul Eno, co-host of Behind the Paranormal here on Achieve Radio. We're very pleased to have as our sponsor New River Press and Barking Cat Books, publishers of some of the most unusual New Age titles on the market today. Along with 4 books by moi, New River Press offers the blockbuster on animal communication, Hear All Creatures, The Journey of an Animal Communicator by Karen Anderson, Shadows on My Shift, real-life stories of a psychic EMT by psychic medium Sherri Lee Devereau, Achieve Radio talk show host of Opening Your Intuitive Eyes, and in a true story that will break your heart with its beauty, especially if you've ever lost a child, there's 41 Signs of Hope by Dave Kane, about the ongoing love and communication between a father and a mother and their son, youngest victim of the 2003 nightclub fire in Rhode Island. Finally, from Barking Cat Books, don't miss the action-adventure that spans 1,000 years, Heaven's Wave, a novel of the doomsday prophecy of 2012 by Dierline. Visit newriverpress.com, barkingcatbooks.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore.
Achieveradio.com. What talk radio should be all the time.